The massive trading station hung in space like a glowing metal city. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its many ports every day. Inside its wide corridors, thousands of beings from across the galaxy bought, sold, and traded everything from rare metals to exotic foods. Vorthak moved through the crowded marketplace with deadly grace. His 7-foot frame towered over most other beings, and his dark green scales caught the artificial light. Yellow eyes with split pupils scanned every face, every movement. His long tail swayed behind him as he walked, and razor-sharp claws clicked softly against his weapons belt. The Saurid bounty hunter was known throughout this sector of space. His species had conquered dozens of worlds through pure hunting skill. They were born predators, designed by evolution to track, catch, and kill. Vorthak was one of the best of his kind. Today he hunted a thief. 3 days ago, someone had broken into a Galactic Council research facility. They had stolen classified military data worth more credits than most beings would see in 10 lifetimes. The thief had fled to this station, and now Vorthak was here to collect both the data and the bounty on their head. His thermal vision showed him heat signatures all around. The insect-like Chitauri merchants glowed blue-white as their cold blood moved slowly through their bodies. The gas-formed nebulites appeared as warm clouds of purple and gold energy. Crystal beings called quartzans showed up as geometric patterns of stored heat. Vorthak's nostrils flared, tasting the air. Each species had its own scent. Fear had a smell too, and he was very good at detecting it. When prey knew a predator was near, they gave off chemical signals that his enhanced senses could pick up from 50 meters away. But something was wrong. As he moved deeper into the market, Vorthak felt an odd sensation crawling up his spine. It was a feeling he had not experienced in many years of hunting. His predator instincts were trying to tell him something, but the message made no sense. Danger. Close. Very close. He stopped walking and activated his scanner. The device could detect weapons, unusual energy signatures, and hostile intentions. It found nothing threatening. Just ordinary traders going about their business. A small group of Chitauri merchants chittered nervously as they counted coins. Their compound eyes reflected fear, but not of him. They kept looking toward the far end of the marketplace. Vorthak followed their gaze. Near a maintenance kiosk, a being in simple work clothes knelt beside an open panel. The being was about 6 feet tall with pale skin and dark hair. It wore standard station coveralls and held a small toolkit. Its movements were calm and precise as it worked on some kind of repair. A human. Vorthak had heard of humans, of course. They were one of the newer species to join the Galactic Council, came from some backwater world in an outer spiral arm. Nothing special about them from what he knew. They looked weak compared to most sapient species. No natural weapons, no armor plating, no venom or telepathic abilities. So why were his hunting instincts screaming at him to run? The human looked up from his work and noticed Vorthak staring. He smiled and gave a small wave, then returned to his task. The gesture was friendly, casual, completely unthreatening. Vorthak's claws extended involuntarily. He forced himself to keep moving through the crowd. His target was somewhere on this station, and he would not be distracted by paranoid thoughts. But as he walked, he noticed more humans. A female in cargo supervisor clothing directed a team of floating cargo pods. She moved with easy confidence, giving orders to beings twice her size. When one of the heavy containers started to fall, she caught it with her bare hands and set it right. The effort did not even make her breathe hard. Another human, wearing the white coat of a medical officer, helped an injured quartzian at a first aid station. The crystal being had cracks running through its arm structure. As the human worked, the quartzian spoke in whispers. Vorthak's enhanced hearing caught fragments. "Thank you, Doctor. Your species. So brave to help others. We know what you come from. We know about your world." The human just smiled. "It's no big deal. This will heal up fine. Just keep it clean and avoid stress fractures, no big deal." Vorthak had seen medical files on quartzian physiology. Their crystal structures were incredibly hard to repair. Most species would need special equipment and hours of careful work. This human had fixed it in minutes with basic tools. More concerning were the whispered words. "We know what you come from." What did that mean? Vorthak moved toward the station's central hub, where most fugitives like to hide in the crowds. His scanner detected the chemical signature he was tracking. The thief was close now, probably within a few hundred meters, but his attention kept drifting to the humans he saw. They were everywhere, he realized. Not many of them, but they seemed to work in every section of the station. Engineering, security, medical, cargo handling, food service. They took jobs that other species avoided. A human male walked past carrying a toolkit that would be too heavy for most beings to lift. He chatted casually with a nebulite about pressure readings in the toxic waste disposal system. The conversation was technical and friendly, as if working in a poison-filled environment was perfectly normal. Another human, a young female, performed routine maintenance in a section where the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. She secured herself with simple magnetic boots and worked steadily, while other species would need specialized equipment just to survive the constantly changing orientation. Vorthak's breathing grew shallow. His species had excellent instincts for recognizing other predators. Those instincts had kept the Saurids alive for millions of years of evolution. Right now, those same instincts were telling him that he was surrounded by something far more dangerous than any predator he had ever encountered. But these humans looked so ordinary, soft, weak. They smiled at everyone, helped injured strangers, and worked together without the dominance displays that governed most species interactions. So why did every cell in his body want to flee? His scanner beeped. The target was very close now, probably in the next section. Vorthak forced himself to focus on the hunt. He was a professional. He had tracked criminals across half the galaxy. Some paranoid feeling about harmless humans would not stop him from completing his mission. But as he moved forward, weapon hand ready, predator senses sharp, one thought kept echoing in his mind. Apex predators did not get nervous around prey. So what exactly were humans? The lower levels of the station were darker and quieter than the busy marketplace above. Vorthak followed his scanner's signals through narrow maintenance corridors and service tunnels. His target had gone deep into the station's belly, probably hoping to lose any pursuit in the maze of pipes and machinery. Down here, the artificial lights were dimmer to save power. Shadows pooled in every corner. The air smelled of recycled atmosphere, machine oil, and something else. Fear, maybe. Or secrets. Vorthak's thermal vision showed him the heat patterns of the massive engines that kept the station running. But it also showed him something unexpected. Human heat signatures were scattered throughout these dangerous lower levels, working alone in areas that most species would never enter. He paused at an intersection where 3 corridors met. His enhanced hearing picked up voices from a nearby room. The door was marked with warning symbols in 12 different languages. All of them said the same thing: dangerous radiation, authorized personnel only. Through the door's small window, Vorthak saw a human male working inside. The being wore only light protective gear while handling equipment that glowed with deadly energy. A Geiger counter on the wall clicked rapidly, indicating radiation levels that would kill most species in minutes. The human hummed quietly to himself as he worked. Vorthak moved on, his unease growing. He found his way to a small bar hidden in the maze of service corridors. The kind of place where smugglers, information brokers, and criminals met to do business away from station security. The bar was dark and filled with smoke from various alien substances. Beings from a dozen different worlds sat in shadowy booths speaking in whispers. This was exactly the sort of place where he might find information about his target. He ordered a drink from the bartender, a nervous Chitari whose compound eyes kept darting around the room. As Vorthak waited, he listened to the conversations around him. In one booth, a group of Quartzans were talking in their crystal chime language. Their words translated roughly to, "The cargo shipment from the human worlds arrived today. Those containers, how do they handle such weight?" At another table, 2 nebulites swirled anxiously around each other. "The human engineer fixed our life support system in an hour. The old repair team said it would take 3 days and cost twice as much." But the conversation that caught Vorthak's full attention came from a booth in the back corner. A Chitauri merchant was talking to someone in the shadows. "I tell you, friend, I have seen things about these humans that make my shell crawl. Today, I watched one of them work in the toxic waste section for 6 hours straight. 6 hours! The safety regulations say no being should be in there for more than 30 minutes. The voice from the shadows was nervous. Maybe she had special equipment. No. I saw her gear. Standard issue. Same protection I would use for cleaning a small spill, but she was swimming in poison like it was water. Vorthak moved closer, pretending to look at bottles behind the bar. The Chitauri continued. And another thing. You know how they interact with other species? So friendly, so helpful. But have you ever seen one of them truly afraid? I mean, really deeply afraid? Now that you mention it, exactly. Every species in the galaxy has things that terrify them. Heights, enclosed spaces, certain predators. But humans? They get startled sometimes, sure. But that bone-deep instinctual fear, I have never seen it. A new voice joined the conversation. Female, confident, speaking in perfect galactic standard. That's because we've already survived the worst things our imaginations can create. Both aliens fell silent. Vorthak turned to see a human woman standing beside their booth. She was of medium height with dark hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore cargo supervisor clothing and carried a data tablet. Sorry, she said with a smile. I could not help overhearing. I am Hyejin from the cargo division. I think you were talking about my colleague Jiwoo. She is very good at her job. The Chitauri's mandibles clicked nervously. We meant no offense, honored human. Hyejin laughed, a warm sound that somehow made Vorthak's scales prickle. None taken. But you seem worried about something. Can I help? She sat down across from the aliens without waiting for permission. Her movements were relaxed, casual. But Vorthak noticed how she positioned herself. Every angle covered. Clear sight lines to all exits, back protected. Military training, maybe. Or just instincts. We were discussing the differences between species, the Chitauri said carefully. Your people seem very capable. We do okay, Hyejin said. She gestured to her tablet. Actually, I was wondering if you could help me with something. We have a shipment coming in from Earth next week. Agricultural products. Some of the items might be new to non-human species, so I am preparing safety information. She showed them the screen. Vorthak could not see it clearly from his position, but he watched the aliens' reactions. Both beings recoiled from the tablet. The Chitauri's shell actually changed color, cycling through patterns that Vorthak recognized as extreme distress. These are food items? The nebulite asked, its gaseous form contracting with fear. Oh yes, very popular back home. This one here is a pepper. We use it to add flavor to meals. And this is a type of berry. Children love them. The Chitauri was making rapid clicking sounds. Its species equivalent of hyperventilation. Hyejin looked concerned. Are you all right? I know some human foods are strong for other species, but these are pretty mild by our standards. Mild? The Chitauri's voice was pitched high with panic. That pepper is classified as a chemical weapon on 17 worlds. The berry you showed us contains enough natural toxins to kill a full-grown Quartzian. Hyejin blinked in surprise. Really? Huh. We give those berries to babies when they are teething. The slight bitterness helps with the pain. She put the tablet away and stood up. Well, I should probably add some warning labels to the shipment then. Nice talking with you. As she walked away, Vorthak heard the Chitauri whisper to its companion, chemical weapons for children. What kind of death world produces beings like that? The nebulite's response was barely audible. The kind that creates apex predators who do not even know they are apex predators. Vorthak left the bar with his drink unfinished. His scanner was still tracking his target deeper into the station, but now he had other concerns. He needed to access the station's information database. He needed to learn more about humans and their homeworld, because his hunting instincts were screaming louder than ever. And now, he was beginning to understand why. The station's archive center was located in the middle levels, between the commercial zones and the residential areas. Vorthak had to show his bounty hunter credentials to access the research terminals, but the Quartzian librarian was helpful enough. Her crystalline form chimed softly as she directed him to a private booth where he could search the Galactic Council databases. His claws clicked against the interface as he typed search terms: human, Earth, species classification, military records. The first files that appeared were standard diplomatic information, population numbers, trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, nothing that explained why his instincts were in constant alarm mode around these beings. Then he found the restricted files. His bounty hunter access codes opened military assessment, reports that were classified above most civilian levels. The first document made him pause. Initial contact assessment. Species, human, Homo sapiens. Origin, Sol 3, Earth. Classification, pending review. Pending review? Most species were classified within days of first contact. Humans had been part of the Galactic Council for several years now. He opened the detailed report. Subject world designated as Class 12 Death World. This classification indicates environmental conditions that should prevent the evolution of sapient life. Council xenobiology teams are investigating how intelligent beings could develop under such circumstances. Vorthak's tail lashed involuntarily. Class 12 was the highest danger rating for planetary environments. Worlds that hostile were usually marked as research only and avoided by all. But the most desperate or well-equipped expeditions, the IA report continued with environmental data that made Vorthak's blood run cold. Average surface temperature varies by 100 degrees across seasons. Atmospheric composition includes corrosive oxygen at levels toxic to most species. Weather systems include violent electrical storms, rotating wind formations capable of destroying cities, and frozen precipitation that can accumulate to dangerous depths. It got worse. Seismic activity frequent and severe. Volcanic eruptions, continental drift, and periodic mass extinction events documented in geological record. Native life forms evolved for extreme aggression and survival. Apex predators include 500-kilogram land mammals with bone-crushing bite force and pack-hunting intelligence. Vorthak's hands were shaking now. How had any species survived such conditions long enough to develop civilization? A polite cough interrupted his reading. He looked up to see a human male standing beside his booth. The being was tall and thin, wearing the formal robes of a diplomatic officer. His hair was neatly styled and his smile was friendly. "Excuse me," the human said in perfect Saurid dialect. "I am Seokjin from the Cultural Exchange Office. The librarian mentioned you were researching Earth. I would be happy to answer any questions." Every predator instinct Vorthak possessed told him to attack first and ask questions later. This human had approached silently, moving without sound across a floor that should have announced his presence to Vorthak's enhanced hearing. That took skills that most military specialists spent years learning. But Seokjin's expression was genuinely helpful. He carried no weapons that Vorthak could detect. His body language suggested no aggressive intent. "I am conducting research for a case," Vorthak managed to say. "Information about human capabilities." "Of course," Seokjin said, settling into the seat across from him. "What would you like to know?" Vorthak gestured at his screen. "These environmental reports about your homeworld, are they accurate?" Seokjin glanced at the data and nodded. "Oh yes, that looks right. Though it is a bit technical. What specific aspects interest you?" "The classification as a death world. The extreme conditions." "Well, Earth does have some challenging weather," Seokjin said with the tone someone might use to discuss a minor inconvenience. "We get ice ages every few 100,000 years. Those can be difficult. The last one covered most of the northern continents in ice sheets several kilometers thick." Vorthak stared at him. "Your species survived planetary glaciation?" "Multiple times, actually. We adapted. During the cold periods, we learned to use fire and make clothing. During the warm periods, we learned agriculture. It worked out well enough." The casual way he discussed surviving world-ending climate events made Vorthak's claws extend involuntarily. "What about the predators mentioned in this report?" Seokjin's eyes lit up with interest. "Oh, you mean the megafauna?" "Yes, we shared our world with some impressive species. Cave bears, saber-toothed cats, dire wolves. Some of them were quite large. How did you survive them?" "We made better tools. Learned to cooperate in larger groups. Eventually, we domesticated some of their relatives." Seokjin pulled out his personal communicator and showed Vorthak a picture. "This is my pet back home. Her name is Bori." The image showed a furry, four-legged creature with sharp teeth and predator eyes. It was sitting next to a small human child who had her arms wrapped around its neck. "You keep predators as companions?" Vorthak's voice cracked slightly. "Dogs are not really predators anymore. We bred them from wolves over thousands of years. They are very loyal. Bori would die to protect my daughter." Vorthak looked at the picture again. The pet was easily large enough to kill the child in seconds. Instead, it looked relaxed and protective. "Selective breeding," he whispered. "You turned apex predators into guardian animals." "It is one of our better ideas," Seokjin agreed. "We did the same thing with food plants. Wild grains used to be tiny and hard to digest. After a few thousand years of careful cultivation, we created crops that could feed millions." The implications hit Vorthak like a physical blow. Humans had not just survived their death world, they had systematically conquered it. They had taken the planet's most dangerous predators and turned them into allies. They had transformed inedible plants into food sources that could support massive populations. The mass extinction events mentioned in these files, Vorthak said weakly. Oh, those happen every few million years. Asteroid impacts, volcanic supereruptions, climate shifts. We have evidence of 5 major ones in our planet's history. Life always recovers, though it takes time. And you survived them. Well, not personally, Seokjin laughed. But our ancestors did, yes. Each time the species that made it through were a little tougher, a little smarter, a little better at adapting to change. Vorthak was beginning to understand. Humans were not just survivors of one hostile environment. They were the end product of millions of years of planetary-scale disasters. They had been forged by extinction events that would have ended most civilizations. Your military capabilities, Vorthak said, his voice barely above a whisper. The classified assessments. Seokjin's friendly expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. I am afraid I cannot discuss military matters. That would be above my clearance level. But he leaned forward slightly, and his voice carried a subtle undertone that made Vorthak's scales crawl. Though I will say that most species find our approach to conflict resolution effective. The way he said effective suggested capabilities that the Galactic Council had decided were too dangerous to document in public. Records, Vorthak's scanner beeped. His target was moving again, heading toward the upper levels. He needed to continue his hunt. But as he stood to leave, Seokjin spoke again. If you are tracking someone on this station, you should be careful. The human community here looks after each other. We have learned that cooperation is the best survival strategy. It was said politely, almost casually, but Vorthak heard the warning underneath. He was no longer just hunting a fugitive. He was entering the territory of apex predators who had spent millions of years learning to protect their own. The central plaza buzzed with activity as beings from across the galaxy gathered for the quarterly cultural festival. Colorful banners hung from the high ceiling, and the air filled with music from a dozen different worlds. Food vendors sold exotic delicacies while performers demonstrated traditional arts and dances. Vorthak moved through the crowd with renewed purpose. His scanner had finally locked onto his target's exact location. The stolen data was here, somewhere in this celebration of peace and cooperation. But his predator instincts had never been more active. Every step he took deeper into the plaza made his scales prickle with warning signals. The number of humans in the crowd was much higher than he had expected. They seemed to be everywhere. Organizing events, helping with translations between species, serving food to visitors, documenting the cultural exchanges. Always smiling, always helpful, always completely at ease among beings who could kill them with minimal effort. His thermal vision picked up the heat signature he had been tracking for days. There near the nebulite cultural display, a gas form being hovered nervously around a data storage device. Zephyros, the information broker who had stolen the military files. Vorthak activated his cloaking field and drew his monomolecular blade. The weapon hummed softly as its edge sharpened to the width of a single molecule. It could cut through starship armor like paper. He began to move through the crowd, keeping to the shadows and blind spots. His enhanced senses mapped every possible threat, every escape route, every witness who might interfere with his capture. That was when he saw him. A human male stood about 10 meters away, near a food stand that sold Earth cuisine to curious aliens. He was medium height with dark hair and wore simple casual clothes. He held a small plate of food and was eating something with obvious enjoyment, while reading information from a handheld device. Nothing about him suggested danger. He looked like any other tourist enjoying the festival, but every instinct Vorthak possessed screamed at him to run. The human looked up from his device and noticed Vorthak staring. He smiled and waved, the same friendly gesture Vorthak had seen from humans throughout the station. Vorthak's weapon hand began to shake. The human, apparently noticing his distress, said something to the food vendor and started walking toward him. His movements were casual, unhurried. He still carried his plate of food. "Are you feeling okay?" the human asked in clear galactic standard. "You look like you might need medical attention." Vorthak tried to respond, but no sound came out. His cloaking field flickered and failed as his concentration broke. The human's eyes widened slightly when he saw the blade, but he did not back away. Instead, he set down his plate and raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Hey there," he said in a calm, steady voice. I am Do-young. I work in the anthropology section. That is a very impressive weapon you have there. Is everything all right? Other beings in the crowd were starting to notice the armed Saurid. Several aliens backed away nervously, but Vorthak saw more humans moving closer instead of fleeing. They formed a loose circle around the situation, not threatening, just present. I am on official business, Vorthak managed to say. Bounty enforcement. Do not interfere, Do-young nodded seriously. I understand. But you seem upset about something. Sometimes it helps to talk. The casual way he addressed an armed predator was terrifying. Most species would either attack or flee when confronted with a Saurid bounty hunter. This human was treating the situation like a social misunderstanding. Your species, Vorthak said, his voice rough with strain. What are you? Do-young looked genuinely puzzled. We are humans. From Earth. I study different cultures and how they interact. Is there something specific you wanted to know? I have read your files. Your world. The things you survived. Oh, that. Do-young's expression cleared. Earth can be challenging, sure. But it is home, you know? Every world has its difficulties. Vorthak stared at him. Difficulties? Your planet tried to kill you for millions of years. Well, yes, but it also gave us everything we needed to survive. Clean water, fertile soil, diverse ecosystems. The dangerous parts just meant we had to be creative about solutions. A new voice joined the conversation. Is there a problem here? Vorthak turned to see a human female approaching. She wore station security clothing and moved with the confident stride of someone accustomed to handling difficult situations. I am Na-young, station security, she said politely. Can I help with anything? Two more humans appeared from different directions. One was a maintenance worker. The other looked like a teacher or administrator. They did not seem coordinated, but somehow they had positioned themselves to block all of Vorthak's planned escape routes. Your target, Na-young said, apparently reading the situation correctly. They are under our protection now. Vorthak looked toward where Zephyros had been hiding. The nebulite was gone, but he could see its energy signature moving toward the human section of the plaza. You harbor criminals, he said. We harbor someone who asked for help, Do-young corrected gently. They said someone was hunting them for information they could not possibly have stolen. Na-young nodded. We checked. The data they supposedly took? It was already in the public archives. Someone filed a false bounty claim. The maintenance worker, a young human with calloused hands and practical clothing, stepped forward. The being you are hunting came to us scared and confused. They said they were being framed for something they did not do. We looked into it. Vorthak's grip on his weapon tightened. You investigated a Galactic Council matter? We asked questions, the teacher said simply. It is what humans do when something does not make sense. They had investigated. A group of civilians from a relatively new species had conducted their own inquiry into a classified military case, and apparently found evidence that contradicted the official bounty. The real thief, Na-young continued, uploaded the stolen data to a public server before fleeing. They wanted the information to be free, not sold. Your client hired you to catch someone who never had the data in the first place. Vorthak's world tilted. He had been manipulated, used as a weapon against an innocent being by someone who wanted to cover their tracks. But that was not what made his claws retract and his weapon lower. It was the way these humans had handled the situation. They had not fought him or tried to overpower him. They had simply gathered information, protected someone in need, and then patiently explained the truth. They had turned a hunt into a learning opportunity. Your world, he said to Do-young. It made you into predators. Do-young considered this seriously. I suppose it did, in a way. But we learned that the best way to survive is to work together. Cooperation is more effective than competition in the long run. You could have killed me, Vorthak whispered. Why would we want to do that? Na-young asked, looking genuinely confused. You were just doing your job based on false information. Now you know the truth. Problem solved. Vorthak looked around at the humans surrounding him. None of them showed fear. None of them displayed aggression. They looked at him with curiosity, concern, and something that might have been sympathy. For the first time in his life, Vorthak understood what it meant to be outclassed by a superior predator. They had not defeated him with strength or speed or weapons. They had defeated him with kindness. Vorthak's ship drifted away from the station's docking port as the massive structure grew smaller in his view screen. His claws still trembled slightly as he set course for the nearest hyperspace lane. The encounter with the humans had shaken him in ways he was still trying to understand. The communication panel beeped with an incoming call from his handler. Vorthak stared at the blinking light for several long moments before accepting the transmission. The holographic image of his employer appeared on screen. A Quartzian business entity whose crystal form reflected expensive lighting and luxury surroundings. Vorthak, the being chimed in its crystalline voice. I trust you have recovered the stolen data and eliminated the thief? The contract is void, Vorthak said simply. The silence stretched for several seconds. When the Quartzian spoke again, its harmonic tones carried surprise and irritation. Void? Explain. Vorthak chose his words carefully. The target was innocent. The data was never stolen. Someone filed false bounty paperwork. That is impossible. My sources were very reliable. Your sources lied to you. The information they claimed was stolen has been in public archives for months. The being you wanted me to hunt never had access to it. More silence. Then, in a tone that suggested barely controlled anger, even if that is true, you were contracted to complete a task. Your reputation depends on... My reputation, Vorthak interrupted, depends on me staying alive. The target is under human protection now. The Quartzian's form flickered with patterns that indicated confusion. Humans, what do humans have to do with this? Vorthak looked out at the stars and tried to find words for what he had experienced. How do you explain to someone that you had encountered something beyond your understanding? Something that redefined everything you thought you knew about predator and prey? You don't hunt Deathworld apex predators in their territory, he said finally. Deathworld? Humans come from a Class 12 world, yes, but they are hardly predators. They have no natural weapons, no enhanced physical capabilities. They are one of the weaker species in the Council. Vorthak's laugh came out as more of a hiss. You know nothing about them. Enlighten me. They survived planetary ice ages. Multiple times. They domesticated the apex predators on their world and turned them into companion animals. They eat chemical compounds that are classified as weapons on most civilized worlds. Their children play with toxins that would kill adult Quartzians. The hologram flickered as his employer processed this information. But even if all of that is true, the Quartzian said, they are still just one species. Surely an experienced hunter like yourself could... They don't fight. Vorthak cut him off. That is what makes them terrifying. I went there prepared for combat, ready for resistance, armed with weapons that could cut through starship hulls. And they defeated me without raising a single claw in anger. How? Vorthak closed his eyes, remembering the moment in the plaza when everything had changed. They investigated. They learned the truth. They protected an innocent being, and then they patiently explained to me why I was wrong. They turned a hunt into a teaching moment. That doesn't sound very dangerous. It is the most dangerous thing I have ever encountered. Vorthak opened his eyes and stared at the communication screen. They have weaponized cooperation. They approach every problem as something to be solved rather than something to be conquered. And they do it so naturally, so automatically, that they don't even realize how terrifying it is. The Quartzian's harmonic tones shifted to frequencies that suggested deep thought. You are saying they are dangerous because they are helpful? I am saying they are dangerous because they have evolved beyond the predator-prey relationship that governs the rest of us. They don't see other beings as threats to be eliminated or resources to be exploited. They see them as problems to be solved or partners to work with. Vorthak began typing on his ship's computer as he spoke, accessing the bounty hunter communication networks. Every species in the galaxy operates on the principle of competition. We fight for territory, resources, mates, dominance. It is the foundation of all our social structures. But he paused, trying to find the right words. Humans have made cooperation their primary survival strategy, not just within their species, but with every other species they encounter. Surely there are limits to their helpfulness? Are there? I saw a human risk radiation poisoning to help repair a Chitauri's cargo ship. I watched another one work in toxic environments that would kill most species. Not because she had to, but because it was her job, and people were counting on her. They volunteer for dangerous tasks that other species avoid. The transmission completed. Across the bounty hunter networks, a new classification appeared for human targets. Avoid. Extreme risk. Consult network database before accepting contracts. What are you doing? The Quartzian asked, noticing Vorthak's typing. Warning the others. Every bounty hunter, mercenary, and enforcer in this sector needs to know what humans are capable of. You are overreacting. They are still just— No. Vorthak's voice carried absolute certainty. They are not just anything. They are the most successful predator species the galaxy has ever produced. They just don't realize it, because they have evolved beyond the need to hunt. He began composing a detailed message for the hunter networks. Think about it. What makes a perfect predator? Intelligence, adaptability, endurance, cooperation within the hunting group, and the ability to turn any environment to their advantage. Humans excel at all of these things, but they don't hunt. They don't need to hunt. They have already won. Their world tried to kill them for millions of years, and they not only survived, they thrived. They turned a death world into a garden. They domesticated their planet's predators. They eliminated scarcity through agriculture and technology. The message was complete. With a few keystrokes, Vorthak sent it to every professional hunter in the sector. The contract is void, he repeated. Payment is not required. Consider this a professional courtesy warning. You cannot simply— Vorthak ended the transmission. He leaned back in his pilot's chair and watched the stars stream past as his ship entered hyperspace. In the plaza, he had felt something he had never experienced before. Not fear exactly, though there had been plenty of that. Something deeper and more fundamental. He had felt irrelevant. For millions of years, saurids had been apex predators. They had conquered worlds through superior hunting ability and ruthless efficiency. But in that moment, surrounded by helpful humans who solved problems with patience and cooperation, Vorthak had realized that his entire species was operating on an obsolete model. Humans had discovered something better than predation. They had learned to turn every challenge into an opportunity for growth, every enemy into a potential ally, every conflict into a chance to find a better solution. They were not just apex predators. They were evolution's next step. Back on the station, as Vorthak's ship disappeared into the void, the cultural festival continued. Humans worked alongside beings from dozens of different worlds, sharing food and stories and knowledge. They helped visitors navigate the complex customs of interspecies diplomacy, translated languages, and solved small problems with the same casual competence they brought to everything else. One human, a young engineer named Tae-hyung, stood at an observation deck window waving goodbye to the departing ships. He had no idea that one of those ships carried a predator who had just fundamentally changed how the galaxy's most dangerous beings would view humanity. He was just being friendly, and in that simple act of casual kindness toward strangers, he had become part of a legend that would spread through the criminal underworld of three-star systems. The legend of a species so dangerously evolved that they had forgotten how to be afraid. The humans, of course, would have been puzzled by such a description. They were just trying to help.